Brought to you by the Theodore Ham Company, Standard Oil Division, American Oil Company, and Viking Snowmobiles. With special guest, Forrest Tucker. Winnipeg, the capital of Manitoba, and the starting line for one of the most grueling snowmobile races in the world. This is the 7th annual St. Paul Winter Carnival International 500, and it's already obvious that it's going to be the coldest. First stop on Monday, January 24th, is Assiniboia Downs Racetrack for check-in. Here, race officials tag each machine, more than 300 of them, and check the engines to be sure they are stock. No modifications are allowed. Once this has been determined, bolts are sprayed with paint to make sure no changes are made during the race. This is the time for last-minute tuning. Machines will be locked up until tomorrow morning. At race headquarters downtown, all drivers must register. Hospital-type identification bracelets are placed on each contestant. Spot checks can then be made during the race to be sure there is no change of drivers. If someone other than the registered driver is found, that machine is disqualified. Just one example of how well organized this race has become. Forrest Tucker is a special guest of the Winter Carnival this year, and he's even volunteered to try his hand in the race. Final stop at registration is a photo for further identification purposes. Now, it's time for the drivers' meeting. All 300 contestants must attend to hear final instructions. Canadian and Minnesota highway laws are explained, and race routes are gone over. The tension mounts as the drivers prepare themselves for the race, more than 500 miles of rugged countryside between Winnipeg and St. Paul, all of it in below-zero weather.
Until 10:30.
Mr. Forrest Tucker is one of our non-contestants. He's on number 320.
I never saw a snowmobile until 3 days ago.
Good luck.
Well, I'm not going to get in anybody's way, but if you see me just hoop and holler and go around, and I'll be way off on the side for the little time I'm out there. But I'm looking forward to watching you guys and you gals for the next 4 days, and we'll have some fun. And believe me, good luck to every one of you.
Race day. Machines have to be picked up at the Downs before dawn and driven more than 15 miles just to get to the starting line. It's bitter cold out. The coldest it's been for the start of any of the 7 races. Minus 40 with a wind chill of 94 degrees below zero. And now, months of preparation by literally thousands of people are over, all for this moment. The first wave of 30 drivers is off, but there are 9 more waves to come, 5 minutes apart, before all 300 drivers have hit the cold, icy trail. The second wave is ready. America takes an early lead, while still more drivers get off the starting line. The early going is rough on a lot of drivers, but the machine will run, they stick with it. Others aren't so lucky and have to leave the race early. Nearly half of those who started this first day will not finish the 175 miles to Crookston, Minnesota. They can only seek the warm comforts of home and perhaps dream of winning next year. Others, though, including Forrest Tucker, continue to make their way along the flatlands of southern Manitoba to the U.S. border. A quick check is all that's needed for most drivers to get through customs. But Tuck just can't resist making a new fan. The first gas stop is right across the border at Noyes. Speed is of the essence, and the drivers get it from the pit crews. Premix premium fuel in a 20-to-1 gas-to-oil ratio is used in all the snowmobiles. What's it like out there, Tuck? Crookston, Minnesota, end of the first leg, and only 162 machines are flagged across the finish line. The leader is a little Frenchman from Quebec, Yvan Duhamel.
6 pack of hands, one at a time.
There's a big beer brotherhood of hams. You're on to something good with Hams.
Hams Tap and Regular is brewed for natural drinkability. Nothing artificial. There's always room for another
The
Hams.
big beer drinking brotherhood of hams.
They can't do that.
You know, they say that the family that plays together stays together. Well, something like that. Every man wants the best for his family, and when it comes to family snowmobiles, to me, that's a Viking. Yeah, it's the best for comfort and stability and ease of handling. You want some fun in the snow? This is it. Hey, come on, gang! Before you buy a snowmobile, why don't you go see your Viking dealer and tell him that Tuck sent you? Let the machine speak for itself.
The fastest drivers leave first Wednesday morning on the second leg to Walker, 156 miles away. Watch Yvan Duhamel, number 283 in the center. He gets off to a slow start, but then really starts to fly. He leads Dale Cormican by only a minute, 22 seconds. Tuck is hanging in there and learning some of the rougher points of snowmobile racing. The second day moves more onto county highways where the machines reach speeds in excess of 80 miles per hour, and the course also begins to get more wooded and hilly. Racing on one ski takes a delicate balance, but it can be done. He's still moving on that one ski and getting ever closer to Walker. The last few miles is across Leech Lake, where the drivers really take a pounding. And the first one into Walker is number 283, Ivan Duhamel on his Skidoo. And Ivan has moved out to a 20-minute lead. Some fantastic driving today. Number 213 is Wesley Pesic of Strathcona, Minnesota on a Polaris. He's moved up to fourth. Look at this, Dorothy Mercer, a blackjack dealer in Las Vegas, and one of the few gals in the race, is across the finish line and now in 15th place. She finished in the top 20 last year and is back for another try. Dorothy is showing a lot of the men in the race just how to drive one of these snowmobiles. Even Forrest Tucker couldn't keep up with Dorothy today, but he seems to be doing okay with Miss Skidoo and Miss Minnesota. It's the third day, and they're back out over Leech Lake before heading south to St. Cloud on the longest leg of the four-day journey, 195 miles. The field has now been cut to 85. Coming off the lake, at least one driver has trouble getting traction in the deep snow, and he's losing precious seconds. through the tiny community of Outing, and then east of town to a curve which gives more than one driver fits. Duhamel still in the lead and trying to increase it. But here's Ricard, number 241, right behind him and in third place. Back at Outing, they're still having trouble with that curve. Tuck's being passed by another one. And still, the machines continue to drop out of the race. But Ivan Duhamel continues to push, and he's first across the finish line at St. Cloud. Next in is Pesek, number 213, and he's now moved up to second place. And Dorothy Mercer continues to challenge. She's now sixth.
My wife says I can only have one beer, and this is it.
There's a big beer brotherhood of hams. You're on to something good with Hams.
Hams Tap and Regular is brewed for natural drinkability. Nothing artificial. There's always room for another Hams.
The big beer drinking brotherhood of hams.
This is the machine that I drove in the 500 International from Winnipeg to St. Paul. What a beauty. Viking, like all the other snowmobile companies, enter their machines in these races to prove them. And believe me, this baby proved it to me. And they're constantly trying to improve their machines for the safety of you and your family and the fun of you and your family. So before you buy a snowmobile, go see your Viking dealer and tell him Tuck sent you. The machine will speak for itself.
Only one more day, Tuck. Let's really give it a ride. There goes Duhamel shooting into the lead again. More than 300 machines started 3 days ago at Winnipeg. Today, only 53 remain. On this final day, 5 machines start in each wave, 60 seconds apart. Come on, Tuck, pour it on. Our gal Dorothy is really pouring it on today. Final gas stop. And look, Ricard is out. He was running third, but his engine quit. Dorothy is really pushing today. She's moving up from 6th place. 133 is Roger Jansen. He's still in the race despite a doctor's advice to quit after several accidents. What a battle for the final day lead. Yvonne Duhamel and Dorothy Mercer neck and neck. Trouble for the lead man. Duhamel has broken down just 2.5 miles from the finish line. He only has a 20-minute lead on Pesek. Can he get repaired in time? That's Jim Safransky of Stevens, Minnesota going by. However, no sign of Pesek yet. More than 200 drivers have already left this race because of breakdowns and cold weather. And now Duhamel, with a clutch failure, is faced with that possibility as his slim lead dwindles. Well, look who's first across the finish line at St. Paul. Dorothy Mercer, good for 3rd place in total time. 133 is Roger Jansen, despite all his troubles and injuries. Duhamel is off. He changed the clutch in 10 minutes and should still have a comfortable lead if he doesn't have any more trouble. Whoa, the Iron Horse got away from the old Sarge. Well, right back on. Into St. Paul, where Dorothy Mercer is already receiving congratulations.
This has been a tremendous boost for women's liberation, and we're going to have a great deal of publicity about this, I'm sure. On behalf of the Winter Carnival, I'd like to give you my personal reward.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's Duhamel. He made it to take first place in the 7th annual St. Paul Winter Carnival International 500 Snowmobile Race. This is Tuck, a courageous race for a man who never sat on a snowmobile until just a week ago. And here's yet another story. The oldest man to finish the race, Herb Howe of Crystal, Minnesota. He's in his 60s, and he made it through all 4 days and ended up in 36th place. And what's Tuck's reaction to all this?
Yeah, that was a fun ride.
Is it right the same as
only throwed me once today.
Frostbitten eyes and all, these men are certainly happy to be among the 46 finishers in this year's race. But the winner was Yvonne Duhamel of Quebec, who led all the way.
What I don't like is when you go about 60 or 70 miles an hour, then you hit a bump you don't expect. This is real bad.
What do you plan to do with the money?
Nothing. Ask my wife.
Oh, yes, baby doll. But after watching you gentlemen and the few ladies involved for the last 4 days, that you, without any question of a doubt, have more guts than any group of athletes that are on the face of this earth.
The Hams Rathskeller was the scene of trophy presentations, and Duhamel received one nearly as big as himself. That was just part of it, though. He collected $7,500 first place money that his wife is going to have to find some use for. Wes Pesick did end up second, but the biggest cheer went out for Dorothy Mercer, who battled her way up to third place this year. She finished high in the standings despite being thrown from her machine several times during the race. But Dorothy couldn't hold a candle to Roger Jansen for problems. Jansen was given the $1,000 True Grit Award from Theodore Ham Company for displaying qualities of courage, tenacity, and persistence against heavy odds. He completed the race despite an unrelenting series of physical and mechanical problems. He crashed twice in the first 2 days and was injured seriously enough that a doctor advised him not to continue. He did, and finished 9th in the race, but that's the kind of courage you see year after year in the International 500.
I heard of one of the guys in this race that conked out someplace between Winnipeg and Crookston up in that lonely country up there, and his support wagon wasn't around. He stood there for a couple hours, about to freeze to death, and finally he wandered off in the distance. He saw a little blue curl of smoke coming up, and he's wading around in snow about up to his waist, and he's thirsty and he's tired and he's cold, and he finally falls down to his hands and knees, and he's crawling and clawing his way through them blizzards and snows. And he gets up to this lonely little farmhouse out there, and he gives it a kind of feeble knock on the door. Old farmer fellow opens the door, says, "What can I do for you?" This guy says, "I got to get shelter. I got to get some food and water and warmth." And the farmer says, "Well, come on in, Mr. Snowmobile. Crawl right on in here and just partake of all the goodies." He says, "Only one thing. I got to warn you. I ain't got no daughter." And the snowmobiler says, "How far to the next farm?"